Who's Donald Trump's real running mate? Is it JD Vance or is it now Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? 2, Tomi Lahren of Outkick. Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Joins us today here on The Will Cain Show. And 3, on the 3rd anniversary of Afghanistan, former Green Beret Scott Mann says the terror warning dashboard isn't just lighting up, it's smoking. Let's talk about the hidden terror fear now from Afghanistan with former Navy SEAL and Congressman Ryan Zinke. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page, always on demand wherever you get your audio entertainment. All you have to do is hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify. Or if you'd like to watch the Will Cain Show, you can subscribe on YouTube. Let me check in with the boys. Let me check in with New York. Let me check in with the Willisha. If somebody were to watch the Will Cain Show, how are we doing, fellas? Are we streaming live? Do we have video?
We are streaming live. We're getting video back up. We had some tech issues to start the show, but we're getting it back up and very quickly here.
All right. Well, that's going to inhibit our conversation. I know that somewhere back there in the bowels of New York City, in the 15th floor of the Fox News headquarters, two-a-days is furiously mashing buttons and making sure Tomi Lahren is still on the line and not panicking because he's generally a calm individual, but basically incapable of chit-chat and small talk.
Tommy's still there.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about for a moment that football is back. See, on Saturday, I went and had a few beers in New York with Pete Hegseth and Rick Reichmuth, the Fox and Friends weekend male team. Went and hit the streets of New York. And I just want to tell you that for all the hate and deserved criticism for the Big Apple, when football is back, New York is back. When the bars are open and the doors are open and the windows are open and the TVs are tuned in to, in this case, college football, Florida State, Georgia Tech, but we move throughout the weeks here, not just college football, but pro football. It is the best version of New York. And then when you get that little bit of chill in the air and it's fall, that's when not just football back, but New York is back. We watched a little Georgia Tech, Florida State, and got us going on the new season. But this is mid-season politics. So let's get right to it with story number 1. She is the host of Tomi Lahren Is Fearless. She is Tomi Lahren here on The Will Cain Show. Hi, Tomi.
Great to see you. And as wonderful as New York sounds, I think Tennessee might have you beat when it comes to college football. Even though I'm not a Tennessee fan, I represent the Tennessee fans, I suppose.
Well, listen, there's no New York homer in me. This is a little bit like the moments of political analysis that I try to achieve. I'm not rooting for this outcome. I'm just describing reality. And I am a Texas Zionist. I mean, I go the way Texas goes, and I love Tennessee for that matter. But the truth is, I can't speak to Nashville because maybe down there on Broadway you've got a good football watching scene, but in Texas, most of the time when you get together with the boys and you watch football, it's in somebody's backyard or somebody's living room. New York just has this one little atmosphere that makes it perfect where you can go to bars and it's wide open, and come September, it's the perfect temperature. It is the best thing about New York, in my estimation. It's not Broadway. It's not foodieism. It is this little slice of New York that somehow has dialed in how to watch football. And I got to be honest, I can't find the Texas version of that besides being right there in the middle of Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium, or the Tennessee version of that matches what New York can do in the fall when it comes to football.
The weather, I will give you that, because I'm sure Dallas right now is like Nashville right now, and it's like the center of hell temperature-wise. So I will give it to you. New York is cooling down. We like to see it. So I will give you that. But, Will, I did live in Dallas for 3 years, and I went to a lot of bars and watched a lot of Cowboys football. So I think there's a scene. You just might be removed from the scene in Dallas, which is okay.
What are you trying to say? Was that an age shot? Was that a shot at my age, Tommy?
I, too, now live in the suburbs of Nashville, so I understand. I don't venture to Nashville itself anymore either, so completely understandable. But back in my early and mid-20s, I'm telling you, Dallas has an unmatched scene. You've got to check it out sometime.
I think that was definitely a shot at my age. So I got to hang out with Tommy last week in New York on a Fox Nation special. And one of the things that I've increasingly come to appreciate about Tommy is your independence. Tommy, and I don't give gratuitous compliments, so I say this because I think it's apropos to the conversation. The more that I get to know you, the more that I like you. It's interestingly, what made you famous is a certain version of Tommy, but the more I'm around you, Tommy, I hear to what to me is a surprising version of Tomi Lahren. And it's only because I'm getting to know you, I think, a little more. And who you are is not quite exactly the person that got famous. I'm not saying it's an act. I think with all of us, there's certain sides of us that everybody gets to know. And I'm seeing other sides of you. And the main thing I'm talking about right now is you're really independent and unpredictable. And what I'm talking about is when it comes to politics. So I want to ask you first, I think the way to start this conversation is probably the biggest news of the past 3 or 4 days, and that is the endorsement for Donald Trump by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I was with you on Thursday. This happened on Friday, so I don't know yet what you'll say about RFK.
Well, the way I feel about RFK, and I've talked to his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, a few different times on my Outkick show, I love the independence. And honestly, one of the things that I love about RFK, regardless of the Trump endorsement, I know that there's a lot of conservatives that are now celebrating him, but even going back to way before that, what I appreciate about RFK is his battle against COVID protocols and COVID propaganda. That's something that I was very outspoken about and something that I was also censored about. So I've long respected him for that reason. He's got a commitment to free speech. There are a lot of things on his agenda that don't align with mine, but I appreciate his independence, and I also appreciate the fact that he is willing to really piss off his entire legacy family to be his own person, and even piss off Hollywood, because his wife is a fixture of Hollywood. Curb Your Enthusiasm, obviously a big star. So I appreciate the fact that he's willing to do what it takes to be true to himself and to have integrity to what he believes in, and some people don't think that's the case because he endorsed the almighty Donald Trump, and to them that's horrible. But for me, I think it was a wise decision on his part, and it just goes to show you how bad Joe and Kamala are, that they flipped a Kennedy to a Trumper.
Yeah, let's talk about RFK for a moment before we get to the impact on Trump. I saw Bradley Whitford. He is one of the stars, I guess, of the show West Wing, tweet at RFK's wife, Cheryl Hines. And Cheryl Hines, as Tommy mentions, is an actress. She was, for me, most notable in Curb Your Enthusiasm, the wife of Larry David. She's married to RFK, and Whitford tweeted at Hines how ashamed she should be that she sits silent while her husband endorses Donald Trump. And there is obviously a level of grotesqueness to that I think should be obvious to anyone, Tommy, but somehow escapes this Hollywood celebrity. Like, you are tweeting at the spouse of a man who's made a choice that you find disagreeable, and you think you're the good guy. And RFK's sister came out and disavowed herself, and many people have pointed out, notably Tammy Bruce at Fox, your family has helped apologize for or overlook all manner of sin, moral degradation, obviously womanizing in affairs, but even worse when it comes to Teddy Kennedy. Your family has stuck together, but the minute that one of your family members disagrees, this is the bridge too far. This is when he can no longer be a Kennedy. It is really gross the way that people around RFK are responding to his endorsement of Trump.
Well, I think it just goes to show when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And all these Kennedys, obviously a legacy family, it's always going to be an important family. And they can't take his name away, by the way. So as much as they want to disavow him and condemn him and tweet at him, it really doesn't matter. He's still a Kennedy. They don't have ownership of the Kennedy name. He's still a Kennedy. He can do what he wants. And, I think it's actually powerful when he's doing interviews and saying, listen, there's going to be more Democrats that are going to follow suit. In the coming days, you're going to see more Democrats coming out in support of Donald Trump. I don't know exactly who he means by that. I don't know if he's more referring to people like Tulsi Gabbard that have already left the Democrat Party. But I think it's a powerful thing that he's willing to go against his own family and he's willing to be his own person. And he also brought up something that I thought Michelle Obama was such an advocate for, and that's making America healthy again, combating, big food and big pharma. I thought Michelle Obama really wanted to champion that and a healthy lifestyle, but apparently not. Everything gets thrown away. As soon as you say you like Donald Trump, I guess you're dead to about everybody, and that just shows you who they are.
Isn't it a fascinating scrambling of political lines? You've got, as you mentioned, I don't know what the current roll call would be, but it would be Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Bill Ackman, David Sachs, Peter Thiel. I think Peter Thiel has gone in on Donald Trump. Don't quote me. I'm not positive on Peter Thiel. But Joe Rogan, numerous people in that world of the comedian, former probably at least center-left types who are gravitating towards Donald Trump. And now RFK. Now you could say, well, we've already seen the scramble where people like Bill Kristol or S.E. Cupp left Republicans and Trump and went to the left. And I would say, yeah, but that was largely a reaction to Trump. That's about the man, and defining your politics as simply the personality. What's going on with RFK and Tulsi Gabbard is about more than how you feel about an individual. It's tied to some shifts in ideology within the parties. But we're at a really fascinating moment in politics where we can see in front of our eyes the scramble.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those defectors like the Adam Kinzingers and the Liz Cheneys and others who have decided that the left is their new home. I mean, for now, I think that they're on some kind of a high because as soon as you say you don't like Donald Trump, you are embraced by the left for at least a short time. But then I think you quickly realize that they're still the left and they will still eat you alive if you really espouse any conservative principles whatsoever. So at first they buddy up to you because you're willing to say a nasty thing about Trump, but just give it some time, they will turn on you too. I have never seen Republicans, though, turn on Democrats or independents that have come over to the Trump side or that have realized that they have some conservative values and principles. I haven't seen the right turn on those people if maybe they have a few remaining liberal policies or ideas. I think it's just a complete opposite reaction, and it just goes to show that the left really does exist in an echo chamber, and if you step out of that echo chamber, you will be eaten alive by those people. And I don't know if you can ever return.
I want to revisit the Kennedys for a moment, Tomi. I just finished reading Killing Kennedy by Bill O'Reilly. And, I think that the take that I gave you, the one that I do believe and that I echoed from Tammy Bruce is your family has covered up for all manner of sin, but you won't forgive someone who not just leaves the Democratic Party, but embraces Donald Trump. On one level, it's disgusting, but it shouldn't also be shocking. One of the things I came away with in Killing Kennedy is just how integral the Democratic Party is to the Kennedys. Like, they are one and the same. Even though you and I can look here today and go, I don't know that JFK, from an ideology and policy perspective, would be a modern Democrat. He would most likely be a Republican. Even though that's the case, the brand of Kennedy is the brand of Democrats. And one of the things you kind of learn about the family is that is the bullseye. Like, if you were doing the concentric circles of integrity to their identity, Democrat, political party, Democrat is the bullseye of their family. And so on one hand, I'm shocked and disgusted, but on the other hand, it makes total sense. Like, what RFK has done is he has betrayed the central identity of the Kennedys.
Yeah, he certainly has. And, I think modern day for the youngins that are growing up now, I think the Obamas are very much like the Kennedys in some ways. I mean, revered by those on the left and respected at some level by those on the right. So I think that the Obamas, and when you think about what the Kennedys have been able to do with the cover-ups and, the way that they've captivated media for generations. I mean, it is very much like what the Obamas have been able to do in present day. But also, when you look at what happened to poor Joe Biden, when Democrats, regardless if they're a Kennedy or a Pelosi or an Obama, it doesn't matter. Once the Democrats decide that you're out, you are out. Look what they did to poor Joe. And now he's been on, he's on another vacation, I believe, or maybe he's back from his vacation. He went from California right to Delaware. We don't know who's controlling anything right now. They put him on after midnight on the East Coast last week. I mean, they don't care about the man. They've just disposed of him and really his entire family. They'll throw them all under the bus now because that's what Democrats do. They are just that cutthroat. And it works to win elections, unfortunately. Republicans are just not the same. We are not built that way.
Tomi, do you think this will have an impact on the election, like RFK endorsing Trump? Will that be meaningful for the election of a president?
I don't know if the people that Trump needs to win over were necessarily RFK fans, so I don't know how much of a difference that it makes. But I think having somebody like RFK, if he is out in any sense on the campaign trail with Donald Trump or he's doing media in favor of Donald Trump, I think that that's important because it just shows, to my original point, how bad the current administration is and how bad Kamala is, that you've got RFK who doesn't share all of Trump's values, maybe very few of his policy positions, is actually out there advocating for him because the alternative is so scary to him that he is willing to go against his entire family and his whole party because he doesn't want to see a Kamala as president. So to me, that makes a difference, even if it's just in the media coverage. It's got some pull.
All right, I want to ask Tomi this. Last week here on the Will Cain Show, we talked to Kat Timpf about the most unattractive hobbies for a man. Tomi is very good at generating all types of outrage on the internet, most notably when she said that grown men shouldn't wear jerseys with other men's name on the back. So now I'm going to give Tomi the opportunity to once again upset the internet. Is men playing video games one of the most unattractive hobbies in your mind?
I think it is the most unattractive hobby. I have never seen a woman say, yeah, my boyfriend, my fiance, my husband is playing video games. That's just so sexy. I've just never heard anyone say it. In liberal women, conservative women, there is no woman. The only time that a man playing video games is sexy is if you want your alone time and you want him to be doing something else, enraptured in something else. That's why I don't mind college football, because when my husband comes home from the baseball season, if something on Saturday keeps him busy and I can do my own thing, then I'm a fan of college football. But I feel like video games are much the same thing. I don't know anybody that's thought, wow, like the way that he has the controller or the mouse and the little headset, living in an alternate reality. I find it to be embarrassing. But, to each their own.
Using the word sexy tends to make it the nail in the coffin. Like attractive, I think someone could get into some type of semantic debate about. But when you start talking about, when you use rightfully the word sexy, I think every dude can get it. Even my 25-year-old producers back in New York who play college football 25. Like, do you think she's turned on? You're playing with Florida State right now, and you're explaining the intricacies of the cover 2 defense. Is she turned on? I think you know the answer to whether or not this is sexy.
See, and I think it just goes back to the whole thing of, and I understand it. I can understand it by proxy, that men who are not currently playing sports, they still want to play sports. So if they can play a video game and feel like they're in the military, or they feel like they can be playing a sport, or they can put another man's name on their back and feel like they're involved, I guess that does something for the male psyche. I don't get it personally, but maybe it's like when I watch the Kardashians or when I watch the Housewives, I'm living through them in some way. So maybe that's what it is. But I still don't understand the fascination of watching other men do things and be that concerned or involved with it is interesting to me. But I guess that's kind of the whole reason we have sports. So I guess I'm alone in that.
Well, this is where now I'll plant my flag in defense of men who watch sports. You expanded it beyond playing video games and wearing jerseys into watching sports passionately. And what I would tell you is, I don't care if you find it sexy. This isn't for you. This is for me. I'm doing this for me and the boys. You can go have your time. I don't care right now your thoughts on me watching the Longhorns.
So now there's a difference between watching and watching passionately. I totally understand. Obviously, I'm not a football fan. I'm a baseball fan. I watch baseball. I like baseball. Obviously, my family is involved in baseball. I love baseball. To me, the way that it can ruin somebody's day when somebody's doing something that's not going to really impact their life at all, and the way that it can have such an impact on somebody's mental state, like a lasting impact on somebody's mental state because of what a team does,
Let me explain it to you.
I don't fully understand it.
I think a lot of men, and I would hope to be in this category, go through life with a certain level of stoicism, Tommy. We keep our emotions in check on very serious issues because when you're confronted with a serious issue, you don't need to feel your way through it. You need to think your way through it. We don't need emotions. We need action. So we strive to be that way in our life. If something tragic happens in my life, I try not to react emotionally. Therefore, on these meaningless things like the outcome of a Dallas Cowboys game, I get to cathartically exercise my emotional response. And I think it's actually not just fun, but healthy. So I sign up. I get on the roller coaster. I go on the ups and the downs on this dumb sports. And I'm fully aware that this is not attractive. That my emotional reaction, usually on the downside, women don't ever care. They don't hold exuberance against you. They hold depression. They don't care about strength. They punish you for weakness. So when I feel down because of the results of a game, I get that you're not attracted to that feeling.
So question for you. I was eating out a couple weeks ago, and I observed a family. The entire family was there. It was a mom, dad, a couple of kids, young kids, and it was a grandma and a grandpa, and they were all eating out together. And the husband had his phone, and he was watching some sporting event on his phone while the rest of his family was eating dinner. And his wife's got two young kids that she's dealing with. The two kids, they're screaming, they're throwing things, disrupting everybody in the restaurant, and he is glued to his little phone on the table watching a game. And I thought she must be a saint, because that phone would be in a million pieces if I were that woman. But I understand being passionate. Take your time, wear the jersey, like fully invest in it. But like at some point, it gets to a point where I think the obsession might be like a little bit beyond, and that might be an instance of that. Would you agree?
I look at that story, I hear that story, and I think that man must be a total saint. What type of game was he so invested in that he was willing to go out to dinner with the family and say, I'll deal with it, I'll just watch it on my phone? I'm going to assume this was a very important game to this man, not some casual game, not the 10th game of the weekend. This was the big one for him, and every one of us have been there. So that man, he's the saint.
Wow. I can't wait till you put this on Instagram, because I want to see the reaction. So obviously I'm going to get a lot of hate on a lot of things. That's fine. But this one might be evenly divided. We need to put this out there and ask, and we need to do a poll. If a man at dinner with his family watching sports on his phone makes him a saint or makes his wife a saint for not absolutely eviscerating him, I think we need to put the poll out there and let the internet decide.
There you go. Comments here. All right, I want to ask you this, Tommy. Our mutual friend Clay Travis, he put this out on his Twitter. They've told me to be careful about what I show in my studio, but I don't care. Clay tweeted this, and it's a poll from a newspaper, okay? And Clay has famously said, and I did more in the past, he reads the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every day. I'm guessing, I think I'm good at this. I'm guessing from the font, I got it wrong. It says New York Times. I was going to say Journal. So here's a poll in the New York Times. It says the Gen Z gender gap. It's fascinating. So women 18 to 29, Tommy, are almost plus 40 for Kamala. Men in the same age group, 18 to 29, are plus 10 Trump. It's the biggest gap, right? Not 30 to 34, not 45 to 64, not 65 plus. That young Gen Z gap, young women and young men, totally different sides of the political spectrum. What do you take from that?
Well, I think abortion is a big part of that. And I think if you remove the abortion question, I think that the numbers would look a lot different on that. But I think that because that issue has been so big for the last couple of years especially, I think that that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing the big divide there. But I think also just the connotation of what it means to be masculine or feminine is really related to these candidates right now, because if you're a young man and you want to be masculine, you are a Trump supporter, because the other side is offering you absolutely nothing in terms of masculinity. I don't care if they think that Doug Emhoff is a sex symbol, or Tim Walz with his rocket kicks or somehow some kind of masculine symbol. No young man is buying that. Like, no young man looks at those two and goes, yeah, that's masculine. But on the other side, there's a lot of young women who look at Donald Trump, and because they've heard things about Donald Trump, or they see some of the things that he says, they go, oh, that he doesn't stand for women, or, it's not feminine to be a Trump supporter. And I think that the Trump campaign can fix that, because I think there are a lot of women who are attracted to the notion of masculinity, because we are losing it in men today. But I think that's the biggest problem. Abortion, and then just what it means to be masculine and feminine, has been warped,
I think,
probably by the issue of abortion.
I actually think the second part is what's carrying most of it, more so than even abortion, because I'm not even sure how young men feel about abortion. I'd love to see that, these Gen Z men, how they feel about
not
abortion.
Young men, young women, though. Oh, I don't think that matters at all. I think it's just young women. I think if you took abortion out of it, young women, the difference would be probably pretty significant.
I see. Well, I just think this masculinity thing, I think you're right. I think there's a lot to do with this and why this generation is so divided. But there's one more thing I want to show you on this that I found fascinating. And that is, so it's unsurprising that women get more conservative as they age, right? So that's what this poll reflects. So 18 to 29 women plus 40 Kamala. 30 to 44 women, it's plus 20 Kamala. So it's been halved at this point, right? 45 to 64 women, now it's only like plus 7 Kamala. So they're getting more conservative. They're getting closer to men. Now, this is what I would take that as, Tommy, we've known this for a while. Marriage and children make you more conservative. Okay, so those are generally life events that push people down this path. But then I found this fascinating, Tommy. Look, I don't know if you can see a return, but I'll just describe it to you. 65 plus women go back the other way again. They go back to liberal plus 21. So from 45 to 64, they're their most conservative. They're only plus 7 Kamala. Then they go 65 and they swing back. And I find that fascinating. And I don't know the answer as to why, but in my mind and anecdotally, I kind of don't find that surprising. It's something about it intuitively makes sense to me, but I'm not sure what it is.
I think it's the generation as well. If you're talking about people over 65, maybe they were kind of more in that era of being hippies, and so they're still hippies and they still gravitate towards the more liberal policies, and maybe they're affected by those things and those talking points. That might have something to do with it. But I'll tell you, I come from a family of conservatives. I can't really name one liberal or Democrat in my immediate family. But I will tell you this, like my grandma, who's in her mid-80s, she will vote for Donald Trump, but she doesn't like Donald Trump. And I think it's also just something about the way Donald Trump speaks that an older generation, much older generation, they just find that to be so unpresidential, kind of going back to the Kennedys and the legacy families, that it's off-putting to them, and that might also have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, last question here with Tomi Lahren. RFK versus JD Vance. Now, I started out this interview, I thought I was going to get to this earlier with you, that I respect and I've increasingly appreciated what I've learned about you, and that's some unpredictable independence. And there are those already saying RFK is kind of becoming, it's only been a couple of days, but sort of becoming Trump's running mate over JD Vance. Now, here's what I don't know if people know this, but it's true. JD Vance's favorabilities are not good. Like, I think it's a negative 13 in a recent poll that I saw. Like, the public is not happy with JD Vance for whatever reason, okay? And then there's this debate, well, is RFK going to be on the campaign trail with Trump more, and does he almost take on that number one surrogate position from JD Vance? So you and I kind of talked about this last week about JD. What do you think, RFK versus JD Vance?
I think RFK would be an excellent advocate for Donald Trump. I also, as much as I really, really hate to say it, I think Nikki Haley would be a good advocate for Donald Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, a good advocate for Donald Trump. We've heard that maybe she's helping him prepare for the debate against Kamala. That's an excellent choice. But here's the thing about JD Vance. I'll be honest. When he first kind of came out, I wasn't a big fan of his because of the childless cat lady's comment. I just knew that was going to be incredibly damning. But since then, when I've watched him, especially on the Sunday shows, I do think that he's done a good job. I think he did a good job yesterday. I think that he's controlled. I think that he comes across likable. But people just do not forget their first impression. And for a lot of people, their first impression of JD Vance was the childless cat ladies and that people without kids should have maybe a lesser stake in the country. And some of it was taken out of context. Some of it was maybe a joke, but it does not matter. That is going to stick with him, and it is going to be a problem for him throughout this campaign and throughout the rest of his career, honestly.
I think JD Vance, I think that this is something that I find is a challenge in modern politics and certainly in political commentary, is explaining to people the difference between analysis and advocacy. So in other words, if I give you my opinion on the way something is, it doesn't mean it's the way I want it to be. But I have to be able to separate what I want from what is. I like JD Vance. I think he's incredibly smart. I think he is an intellectual advocate for MAGA. But there's something about JD Vance that's reflected both anecdotally and in the polls that does not seem to be connecting with people. And it's worthy of analysis, I think. I think it's worthy of analysis beyond Donald Trump. Like, what does that tell us? I said the same thing about Ron DeSantis, and DeSantis fans couldn't stand what I had to say because they thought I was advocating against DeSantis. I think DeSantis is an incredible governor. But that doesn't separate me from analyzing what is, and he did not connect with people on a way that could get you elected to the presidency. And I think there's a similar conversation that's going to happen around JD Vance.
Disagree with that a little bit because I think if Ron DeSantis had not gone against Donald Trump, I don't think people would have felt that way about Ron DeSantis. And quite honestly, since he's dropped out of the presidential race long ago, I think Ron DeSantis has returned to form. And when I've seen him speak to the media or I've seen him on television, I do believe he comes off incredibly likable. I think he is the future of our party. I think if he's not running against Donald Trump, I think his shine will completely come back, and I think he's the future. With JD Vance, I think what it is that he has an incredible ability to connect with people because of his life story. I mean, they made a movie that's obviously a popular movie with very famous actors and actresses in it. So he should have the ability to connect to people on that level. But I think those early podcasts that he did before he was obviously a running mate for Donald Trump, I think they're just going to sink him, because once you take a jab at somebody's personal life choices, especially revolving around being a parent or being a woman who wants to be or doesn't want to be a parent, I think you've now offended people like at the core of where they are in life. And that is very hard to come back from with women.
Love the conversation, and you can continue it because right after the Will Cain Show, starting at 1 Eastern, over at Outkick.com, check out Tomi Lahren Is Fearless. I always love talking with Tomi Lahren. Thank you so much, Tomi, for being on the Will Cain Show.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. You've got to hear this video, this audio. You've got to hear this clip from Gavin Newsom admitting that those who proclaim to be saving democracy care nothing for democracy. That's coming up on the Will Cain Show. The Tunnel to Towers, countless veterans' villages, they stand as a beacon of hope for those who've sacrificed everything for this country. These facilities are committed to helping veterans achieve stability and independence by providing housing and services based upon each one of their individual needs. Now, within the village, residents will find support and community among those who truly understand, along with them, the meaning of service. With several veterans' villages either completed or in development nationwide, the foundation and its supporters believe in the power of unity and that no veteran should ever be left behind. Now, through its Homeless Veterans Program, Veterans Villages, and National Care Management Network, the Tunnels to Towers Foundation has provided housing and supportive services to over 8,000 veterans since this program's inception. Now, join Tunnel to Towers. You can join Tunnel to Towers. Please do join Tunnel to Towers. in their goal to eradicate veterans' homelessness and support those who have given everything to this country by donating $11 a month to T2T.org. 95 cents of every dollar donated to the Tunnels to Towers Foundation will go directly to helping America's heroes. That's T2T.org. Donate now. More coming up on The Will Cain Show.
It's time to take the quiz.
5 questions, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
History, pop culture, science, sports, civics. How much do you know? Let's find out.
Who was the first person to walk on the moon?
Jackson or something?
Neil Armstrong.
Take the quiz every weekday at thequiz.fox and then listen to the quiz podcast to find out how you did.
Play, share, and of course, listen to the quiz right now at thequiz.fox.
Did you hear the news? Now you can. With instant updates from Fox News for Amazon Alexa. Breaking stories and top headlines, the economy, and so much more. Brought to you by Fox News, America's #1 cable news network. Plus, setup couldn't be easier because everything's ready to go in the app. Just say,
Alexa, play news from Fox.
In Fox News.
It's the latest when you need it, on demand from Fox News and Amazon Alexa. Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
That heat's going to be out there for one more day.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com.
Admission that the Democratic Party isn't saving democracy, but subverting democracy. This from Democrats. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand. Hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify or on YouTube. A couple of comments on Tomi suggesting who's the saint, the woman who allows her husband to watch a football game on his phone during family dinner, or the man who is multitasking and willing to indulge in family dinner while there's a very important game that he will now watch on his phone. Robin Workman on YouTube says, as a woman and a huge Georgia Bulldog fan, and have watched a game on my phone while having dinner with my husband. That's a vote for Will over Tomi. Victor Juarez says, total lack of respect, and the man's priorities are wrong to place his selfishness before the family. That's a vote for Tomi from Victor. JJ says, a woman that doesn't want his man to have time for himself is not worth the man's time. Oh, vote for Will. And then Malaza Sabor says, the man is paying for the dinner and the whole ordeal. Let him watch his game in peace. Another vote for Will. That's 3-1 so far on the hypothetical presented by Tomi Lahren. So Nicole Shanahan was RFK's running mate. She was his vice presidential candidate as he was running for president. RFK has now dropped out of the race and endorsed Donald Trump. Nicole Shanahan is a lifelong Democrat. She's a donor. She's like a Silicon Valley, San Francisco area tech industry person. And she's donated, for example, to the special elections in Georgia that elected Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock to the Senate. But now she, along with RFK, is endorsing Donald Trump. It's fascinating to hear why. We talk a lot about the policy overlaps between RFK and Trump. But listen to Nicole Shanahan explaining to Adam Carolla why they're going with Donald Trump.
I think Kamala Harris is dangerous to me because she is the ultimate puppet for an organization that has, I believe, since President Obama, not actually run real people. Mm-hmm. They have selected amongst a very small group of individuals that they can control and dictate policy over. She uses messaging in a way to get populations of young, unknowing, innocent people to join her on these false virtue signal ambitions and actually take on policies that will eventually really hurt them in the future.
All right, so what's fascinating, the second part is fascinating, talking about sort of leading young people by the nose into these policies that ultimately end up hurting them, but the anti-democratic nature of, in her estimation, how the Democratic Party's been picking candidates since Barack Obama. Now, look, Shanahan is saying something that anybody that has run for office as a Democrat, at least from an outside perspective, has said, look, we're not talking about one or two. Bernie Sanders and all of his supporters talked about this when it came to his race against Hillary Clinton. Jill Stein has talked about the efforts to go after her by the Democratic Party to keep her off the ballot. Nicole Shanahan and RFK have experienced this now of the anti-democratic nature of attempting to run for office as a Democrat. What will happen to you with the party? Now, I asked this weekend on Fox and Friends, I had Robert Wolf. He's a Democratic strategist, been involved in several campaigns about this idea. And I was a little bit, I thought his answer was revealing. Listen to Wolf on Fox and Friends.
They're saying your party has closed down its process to the voters and any competition. And for the last 12 years, this is according to Shanahan, has selected their candidates from a pool selected by elites and by donors. And they're not in on this. They want to actually participate in democracy. And their answer to that is Donald Trump.
Yeah. I don't know who Shanahan is. I think that if you asked 100 people, 99.9% wouldn't know who she is. So the idea that she's impacting the Democratic voter is a zero.
Well, so I said to Wolf right then, I said, the clip cuts off, you sound so dismissive. In this case, you are dismissing someone who's not look, there's no, the thing about a democracy is there's no such thing as a nobody. So I don't even want to say that. Like, this is the point. You're treating the voters like they're nobodies, and you're boxing out the voters. And you could say exactly what Wolf said about everyone in the Democratic Party, meaning the people that vote. No one knows who they are, and they won't impact the race. In this case, for what it's worth, you're dismissive of someone who's donated millions of dollars to your party and attempted to run in your party. And this attitude is reflective of how dismissive the Democratic Party has gotten towards its voters. Now, I want to say this. Do I think the Republican Party is way more attentive to its voters as a party? I'm not sure the answer to that is yes. Everything about the Republican apparatus tried to box out Donald Trump from 16 onwards. From 16 onwards. He bent the Republican Party to his will, but they tried. They tried to make sure that it wouldn't be Donald Trump. So I'm not telling you that there's some holier motivation inside the Republican Party. I actually think the difference is twofold. I think it's competency. I don't think the Republican Party is capable of doing what the Democratic Party is doing, of boxing out all competition. And secondarily, hypocrisy. The Democrats are the one running around talking about Trump being a threat to democracy, and they are the saviors of democracy while shutting down the process of democracy. At some point, you choke on the hypocrisy. I've been doing this a lot, guys, in New York. I don't know if I want it. Anybody that listens to Will Cain Show knows it. I want to talk and interact with people of different points of view. So I've had Wolf, I had a Kevin Lanning, Richard Fowler. This is all in the past week on Democrats. And last week I hosted Jesse Waters Primetime and I had Nemeki Constant.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm wanting more of this, and I get something out of it, not just a simple spar, although I think that's healthy in and of itself. But not, as we've talked about, not everybody likes it. And I wanted to share this with you guys. I sent this to you guys. I got a voicemail, okay? I want to share with you how some conservative Fox viewers feel about me having on people like Robert Wolf or Nemeki Constant. Enjoy.
Yes, I don't know who the woman you had on TV tonight was. It's Tuesday. But she took control of your program, and you let her just filibuster instead of cutting her off when she needed to be cut off. You need to maintain better control. Sorry to pass out the information. I'm a little bit unhappy with the way, Republicans are not taking control of things. But having women on like that who are obviously liberals, it serves no purpose. Just don't even give them a platform. Or if you do, make sure you're ready to respond. Thank you.
Make sure you're ready.
Okay, it's great in so many ways. First of all, I don't know who this person is. They did not give me their name. And I don't know how they got my number to leave me a voicemail. There's that. Then I also like what she considers her role to be. Sorry to be the one passing along the information.
Yeah. That was the best part.
She's not sharing with me her opinion. She's not giving me feedback. She has been elected by the body audience to pass along the information to me.
Like the spokesperson for the audience just called you.
Yes.
Got your number
We all
somehow.
spoke, and they have nominated me to pass on the information to you.
God, that was so good. I got a good laugh out of that over the weekend.
And I sent that to you guys over the weekend. And then this, on a serious note, like this is what we talk about with Democrats. Don't give people a platform. Like it's not cancel culture, but like this whole idea about giving people a platform. Oh, also, I need to be prepared. That was the most hurtful part that I was not prepared. Which I would like to think I battled Nemeki pretty hard, Richard pretty hard, Robert Wolf pretty hard. But there's always people like, unless I do anything but be an absolute and utter a-hole, I have to cut them off, not let them say a word, and shout them down with personal insults. If I don't do that, then I let them take control of the program, and I'm not prepared. Not do I have a substantive rebuttal, did we have a back and forth? What's up, Tinfoil?
Well, we will have Richard back on the show later this week. People want to see that. And we have another guest.
People don't want to see.
left.
What are you talking about? People want to see that.
What are you talking about?
Don't tune in.
Did you not just listen to Susie? She clearly said that the people don't want to hear that.
It's not what the people
That's
want,
right.
Pat.
It's not what the people want.
All right. Well, back to the substantive point about democracy. Listen, you can listen to me and you can hear me debate, Robert Wolf or whoever on this. And you can even say, well, Will has a bias and Will's not being fair about. But what would you say to an admission by Gavin Newsom, the governor of California? I want you to listen to him on the Pod Save America, the Pod Bros podcast.
How are you feeling about the switch?
I mean, the switch. Now, we went through a very open process, and a very inclusive process. It was bottom up. I don't know if you know that. Yes, that's what I've been told to say.
Yes, it was a blitz primary, I believe is what they called it.
It's a very, very fast blitz. Yes.
I think it was
a blink primary, so we call that.
A 30-minute convention.
Yeah.
Between a tweet and another tweet.
It's amazing how it happened.
That is stunning.
How are you feeling about the switch?
That is amazing. He says in that, that's what I've been told to say. He's laughing at the idea that it's an open process. He's mocking that it was bottom up. And by the way, those are all Obama bros. The Pod Save America, that's all Obama bros. They're laughing at their rejection of democracy. Gavin Newsom and the Obama bros. The party that promises to save democracy laughs at democracy. The third anniversary of the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and where we sit today with the terror warning system smoking. That's coming up with Ryan Zinke on The Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you. Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Fox Nation presents The Godfather of Fentanyl.
It was causing the most deaths that I'd ever seen.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
A shocking new docuseries about the rise of the deadly drug.
I asked him how he made his money, and he said, making drugs.
Money makes people do desperate things.
And for the first time ever,
it only ends one of two ways. You're either dead or you're in jail.
Hear from the man responsible for it all. John Roberts hosts The Godfather of Fentanyl. The must-see docuseries is streaming now on Fox Nation. Sign up at foxnation.com today.
Well, they say there are certain things that shouldn't be brought up at the kitchen table, but not here at the Duffys. So pull up a chair and join me, Rachel Campos Duffy.
And me, former U.S. Congressman Sean Duffy, as we share our perspective on the discussions happening at kitchen tables across America.
And we're going to share some real-life solutions as well to the everyday issues that you all talk about. And we're going to talk about some of those things that we agree on.
And some that we don't.
Download From the Kitchen Table, The Duffys, at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Three years after our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the terror warning board isn't just lighting up, it's smoking. So says one former Special Forces warrior. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. Subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. All right, joining me now is the former Interior Secretary under Donald Trump. He's Congressman from Montana. He's a former Navy SEAL commander. It's Ryan Zinke on the Will Cain Show. Congressman, great to have you.
Hey, great to be with you, Will.
Hey, you know, as I've gotten to know a lot of guys, fortunately privileged to know a lot of guys like you, you know, not just elite warriors, but vets in general. There's nobody that is more upset by the way it went down in Afghanistan than guys who served in Afghanistan. I experienced that, Congressman, over and over and over. Everyone recognizes, I don't know where that war was headed, and I don't know how we were going to save, whatever, quote unquote, save Afghanistan. But the way we withdrew really seemed to betray our vets.
Well, it did, and it's had far-reaching consequences. You know, the way we withdrew Afghanistan, and look, we lost 13. It could have been easily thousands. I mean, when we pulled out of Kabul, you know, my opinion is that the Department of Defense capitulated because they knew they should never abandon, you know, Bagram, never abandon, you look at their other bases. But to go to Kabul and make that stand, that was a recipe for disaster. They could have had the power, quite frankly, to eliminate every ally, every Westerner there. They certainly did. I mean, when we pulled out, they were hanging journalists out of the Blackhawks, and they were stoning to death, female pilots that we were training. But that event led to, I think, Ukraine. It led to our allies not trusting us and our enemies, quite frankly, not fearing us.
So I want to share with you two things that I learned over the weekend. Former Green Beret Scott Mann, who participated in a lot of efforts to get interpreters and Americans out of Afghanistan after withdrawal, Operation Pineapple Express, was on Fox and Friends. He's a mutual friend of me and Pete Hegseth, and he said all this on air. So I want to run it by you. To your point on betraying people, he said all of our connections, our assets, the people that we worked with in Afghanistan, they're talking to vets who served in Afghanistan, Green Berets and SEALs, meaning they're sharing intel. More so with vets like that than they are with the three-letter agencies of America because they lost so much trust in the CIA, the NSA, anyone else who was supposed to be their conduit of information before. They don't trust because of the way it went down. So one of our best sources of intel now is actually vets who have relationships over there.
Well, what message does it send, right? It sends that, America's not going to be there, especially for those that we serve side by side with. In Afghanistan, there were warriors that served side by side that risked it all, and in many cases lost their entire families to step up and fight with us for democracy. And we left them. Matter of fact, we didn't leave them. We went out of our way to leave them. The State Department, in many cases, was the biggest stonewall to get our people and those that served with us out. So you look at that. That's why our enemies no longer fear us, and our allies, quite frankly, don't trust us. But Will, it's bigger than that.
Right.
I go on the campaign trail and I ask this question: what department, division, or agency of the United States government do you have full faith and trust in? It's crickets, Will, because we don't trust our government, and right now they're not worthy of our trust, and it's a lot about gaining accountability back. No one was held accountable for the decision to leave Kandahar, leave Bagram, and consolidate in Kabul, which led to a disaster. It could have led again to 10,000 deaths.
Yeah, the only person fired is Stu Schiller, right? Like literally nobody fired about what happened in Afghanistan except for the guy that spoke out about what happened in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. And look, we the people, right? We the people need to get a hold of our government again. And this is why this election, quite frankly, is the most important in my lifetime. I've said that over and over again, which is quite frankly, ironic. But we've reached, this is the most important election of our lifetime, and we all have to do our duty.
Can I ask you, I think I've talked about this. So a couple of weeks ago now, maybe just 2 weeks ago, I did the New York City Navy SEAL swim, which has been an event that I've done for a couple years now. You should come out. We'd love to have you.
Well, you know what? I actually heard that you did really well too, by the way.
Did I what? I did well or not well?
I actually heard you did really well.
I do all right. But I get to hang out with the guys, and I've got to well, I got to hang out with the guys, and I've gotten to establish some relationships. So I asked, and I'll leave it off the record on who I was talking to, but it was at the bar afterward. I said, hey, I'm just curious, what percentage of the team members would you say are pro-Trump versus pro-Biden or Republican Democrat? And the guy I was talking to, I think it's worth saying, who was an NCO. I'll just say that, okay? Said 99% Trump, 99% Trump. And then he goes, wait. I'm going to adjust that. Because some of the officer class, in pursuit of careerism, might start adopting and even believing politics that are inherent. But he only adjusted it at that point down to 98% because of that officer adjustment. Which, by the way, you climbed the officer ranks, so you would have seen this from all angles. What do you think about that? Is that accurate?
Well, I'll give this example. There are 5 SEALs in the U.S. House of Representatives. I was the first one in the House. We will get 6. We're going to win in Montana with Tim Sheehy we'll have 6 in the House, 1 in the Senate. Our Special Forces brethren, we have 2. We think we could advance to 5. And when you add Marines, combat veterans, combat arms, those guys that have served and fought, we're a squadron plus, and all of them are behind Trump. That should give you an idea.
Yeah.
Look, there are a few like anyone else that SEALs is not monolithic. We have a variety of thought. Some of our senior leadership over time has been very critical of Trump. But I can tell you, I would say it's closer to 99% are right behind strong military, strong U.S., do what we say we're going to do, and accountability, and that's Donald J. Trump.
I do think it says something. 99%. We're not talking about a 60. We're not talking about a 54-46 margin here. We're talking about.
Well, I'll tell you a little different, interesting factoid on statistics. So Washington, D.C., 94% of Washington, D.C. voted for President Biden. And I'm convinced the other 6% don't work in government. So, as a former secretary going to D.C., it's like, if you're a conservative, it's like parachuting behind enemy lines and landing at these departments because all of them have voted for Biden. And look, as a military guy, I never asked anyone who was a Republican or Democrat. I really don't care. I do care whether you love the country, though. That I care about. Yeah. But when you go down into a monolithic, deep state where 30% are on the resistance movement, we got a problem. And I think that's what this movement is about accountability. And look, if we don't trust our government, I don't think an ally would. If we don't trust our government, why would the United Kingdom? And quite frankly, after Afghanistan, the United Kingdom censored us. First time in the War of 1812.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to that. But that analogy is very, very evocative, like parachuting behind enemy lines into that monolithic state that runs the United States government. You brought up special forces. I mentioned Scott Mann. Scott, there's the second thing that Scott said. He said, what's going on in Afghanistan, nobody's paying attention to today, meaning we have reverted back. Of course, there's the social stuff about what they're doing to women and the way they've reverted back to 1999 in terms of Sharia and that way of life. But the terror activity that no one's talking about, that we don't, because as of what you and I described a minute ago, we don't have the relationships and the trustworthy intel anymore. But the terror activity of what's happening, the Haqqani network is back, Al-Qaeda is reforming, that Afghanistan, this was his analogy, Congressman. He said, the warning dashboard isn't just lighting up, it's smoking right now. And when you combine that with the southern border, and he said, by the way, it's not going to be 9/11. It's not like, we're not on the road to 9/11 again, but we're on the road to our own October 7th. Like some chaotic terror situation that has now cropped up again because of what we've allowed to happen in places like Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. You look at the Harris, border czar role, and you look at what's happened under the Biden-Harris administration. We have no border. And there are no doubt thousands of terrorists. And look, you're not going to negotiate with these people. You're not going to change their value system. They hate America, and their mission is to destroy America. And we have terrorists crossing our border. They're here. And look, I spent most of my adult life, quite frankly, hunting down, finding, and killing terrorists, to include Hamas and related groups. I've never thought that I would see Hamas in our capital. And that's exactly what I saw when Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke, is that Hamas was in our capital tearing down U.S. flags and burning them. So Hamas is here. That's a threat, obviously. And I tell you what, our other threat is our Constitution. Those are the two threats I see, threats from terrorists. We don't have a border, and there's people that hate us and are coming here to do us harm. And then our Constitution is at risk. Censorship, it's this nonsense that's going on about, pressing our rights. All of them are under duress. So I'm an optimist, though. I would say everyone's got to do their part, Will. And, my part is I sit in, Congress. I'm on appropriations. I'm chairman of SEAL PAC. And that's my job. Your job is to get the word out and make sure everyone cares. And you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. As are you. We love having you. This may be your first time. I'd love to have you back on the Will Cain Show. By the way, where are you from in Montana? What's home in Montana?
Whitefish. So Whitefish, little corner right by Glacier Park. Come on out. You'll like the remote broadcast from here. We'll make sure you're all set up.
I lived there for a while.
Well,
I lived in Montana for a while.
Because Montana, a lot of people view Montana through Yellowstone, right? Which is magnificently acted. It's Kevin Costner, but it's a drama set in Montana, like Star Wars is a drama set in space. Don't get too used to it. The settings are beautiful, et cetera, but the way of life here is, is a little different than the movies.
Well, it wasn't Yellowstone that drew me a Texan to Montana. It was Lonesome Dove. And I lived in Clinton, which is just east of Missoula by about 20 miles on Rock Creek. And I worked at the El Diamondee Ranch, and it was some of the best time of my life living up there in the BLM land, packing in hunters.
Oh, what's funny
awesome.
Is that my Texas friends, they say, Lonesome Dove, if you live in Texas, Lonesome Dove is like a chapter in the Bible, right? I said, well, where were they going?
Yes.
They were all going to Montana. So when you look at that Lone Star flag, you think of that star being Montana because that's where everyone wanted to go.
Well, I got to let you go because you had her out. So I'll tell you the two things that drew me to Montana. Honestly, it's what you just described. And second, I read Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. And it turns out that Steinbeck made up a lot of this. He didn't actually travel the country with his dog, Charlie. But he gets to Montana and he says, if you asked, say, an 11-year-old boy from Washington, D.C., who'd never been to Texas, to describe Texas, what he would in reality describe would be Montana. So I was like, well, if Montana's what Texas is supposed to be, hell, I got to go to Montana. So that's why I moved up there for a while.
Well, I look forward to being on the show again, and I look forward to coming out to Montana. I'll show you in person. But thanks for what you do.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman. We'll see you next time. There's Congressman Ryan Zinke. By the way, look at his Wikipedia. bio. SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 6, Commander. What is this, 30 years? Is that 30? 22 years. Yeah, I can do math. 22 years. United States Navy SEAL Team. Now Congressman from Montana. By the way, just a few more comments here. You guys jumped in on a lot of this debate we had today. John Phillips Jr. says, RFK is an environmentalist and is fighting for healthy eating, so he wins in my book. Hey, go to my Instagram right now if you want. It's C, the letter C, Will Cain. The reason why is there's a link in my stories to Rachel Campos Duffy, my Fox and Friends weekend co-host, did I think it's roughly a 6 to 8 minute interview with RFK Jr., maybe more like 10. All they talked about is food, additives, preservatives, pesticides. It's fascinating, and it is a rarity for this type of conversation to happen for a whole host of reasons. But you'll hear about what RFK has, the fight that he's in on when it comes to our food supply. Don Rosenkrantz says, Vance is his running mate, but Kennedy is in a class of his own. Trump and Kennedy, what a powerhouse team. Manager Matt says, endorsements mean nothing. Have you ever voted for someone because they said they support another person? I think that's fair, Manager Matt. I don't think VPs matter that much. But I think when you have endorsements from surprising corners, like a Republican gets an endorsement from a Republican, okay. You know, Christopher Hitchens once said, if an atheist wakes up every day and says, I don't believe in God, it's not newsworthy. But if the Pope wakes up one day and says, I'm not sure about this God thing, all of a sudden it's screaming headlines. If somebody like RFK or Tulsi Gabbard starts endorsing Trump, that's different than Tom Cotton endorsing Donald Trump. A little bit of everything says on YouTube, Kennedy will be put in a cabinet position possibly, but Trump would hurt his campaign if he swaps Vance for Kennedy. I don't think there'll be any formal swap. Susan M. says Kennedy doesn't add much to the ticket. He is a mess. Possibly. Ashley Fountain says, why is Trump afraid of debating Kamala? Ashley, where are you getting your news? That's just not happening. Right now, apparently they're debating, they're negotiating whether or not they're going to have mics open or mics closed, muted during the first debate. Kamala wants them open so you can interrupt, probably so she can chastise him for interrupting. But Trump's ready and willing to have other debates, including one on Fox News, and Kamala's not interested. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on The Will Cain Show. We'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow. We'll see you next time.